The beginning, the tyrant of Creekwood estates looked peaceful, green lawns, trimmed hedges, and the illusion of harmony. But under the surface, one person ruled with an iron fist, Betty Brown, the HOA president. She didn't see herself as a community leader. She acted like a dictator. Too many flowers in your garden? Fine. A mailbox the wrong shade of beige? Fine. A toy left in the yard? Another fine. People whispered her name with fear. No one dared stand against her. Until she came after us. I lived with my grandfather, Jack Reynolds, a Vietnam veteran. Calm. Patient. A man who'd seen real war and wasn't about to bow to a petty neighborhood tyrant. First came the warning letters. Then our mailbox was smashed to pieces. A few days later, our power and water mysteriously went out. Betty thought she could scare us into obedience. But Grandpa just leaned back in his rocking chair, binoculars resting on his lap, and said quietly, "She's not playing checkers. She thinks she's playing chess." Well, so are we. That was the day the Battle of Creekwood began. A week later, they came. 4 men in badly tucked-in polo shirts, driving 2 white panel vans. They strutted across our lawn like hired muscle from a cheap movie. One, a tall heavy-set man named Donnie, flashed a shiny badge that wasn't real. "Compliance officers," he announced. "You've got violations. This can go easy or hard." But Grandpa wasn't rattled. He calmly leaned on his cane and said, "Son, impersonating an officer carries prison time." The men sneered. They thought fear would win. But what they didn't notice was the small camera on our porch, recording every second. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains, whispering. For the first time, they saw Betty's so-called officers exposed as frauds. Then came the voice that shifted everything. Theo, our eccentric neighbor with his ham radio, broadcasted the entire scene live. "Attention Creekwood," his voice boomed. "The Goon Squad has arrived, starring Donnie the discount cop and friends." The fake authority crumbled under laughter and exposure. The first crack in Betty's empire had appeared. Betty wasn't done. The next night, the vans came back. This time, the intimidation felt heavier. One of the men was clearly armed. The air grew thick. Neighbors gathered quietly on the sidewalks, watching. Then Salvation arrived, sheriff's deputies, lights flashing. And with them, Inspector Martinez, from the Postal Inspection Service, already tracking Betty's fake notices. Relief spread through the crowd, until a deputy searching the second van called out, "Sergeant, you'll want to see this." He pulled out a gym bag. Inside, clear plastic baggies filled with white powder. The crowd gasped. Donnie smirked. The trick was obvious, they were planting drugs, ready to claim they belonged to us. But we were ready. "Now," I said loudly. Grandpa flipped a hidden switch. In an instant, floodlights exploded across the yard, bright as stadium lights. A deafening industrial siren wailed like a war zone. Everyone froze, the deputies, the neighbors, the goons. And then I pointed, "Check the porch camera. Angle's perfect. You'll see him, right there, sliding that bag into the van." The deputies crowded around the footage. Clear as day, the goons planting evidence. Donnie's smirk vanished. Checkmate, once again. The night wasn't finished. A modest sedan pulled up. Out stepped Brenda, the HOA treasurer, a woman always seen in Betty's shadow, nervous, afraid. But tonight, she was clutching a thick manila envelope to her chest like it was her shield. She approached the deputies, voice trembling but steadying as she spoke. "I can't stay silent anymore. I'm the treasurer. Betty's been stealing from us for months. These are the real ledgers." Gasps rippled through the neighbors. Brenda handed over receipts, canceled checks, invoices for vans, uniforms, weapons, all paid with our HOA dues. Over $50,000 stolen. The crowd erupted in whispers, anger rising. Their money had funded the thugs who tormented them. Inspector Martinez flipped through the papers, eyebrows raised. This wasn't just corruption, it was organized crime. And, right on cue, Theo's voice crackled once more across the radios, "Breaking news. The treasurer has flipped. Folks, we've got ourselves a whistleblower." The crowd laughed, cheered, and for the first time, hope replaced fear. An hour later, the cavalry arrived. A convoy of official vehicles, state troopers, unmarked sedans, headlights cutting through the night. This wasn't local anymore. Out stepped a man in a sharp suit, flanked by troopers, Davenport, from the Attorney General's office. Calm. Focused. The kind of man who closed cases. With Brenda's envelope in hand, they had everything they needed. Emergency warrants were already signed. Davenport strode to Betty's door, knocked firmly, voice echoing, "Betty Brown, we have a warrant for your arrest and to search these premises." Silence. The house went dark. A childish attempt to hide. Davenport nodded. Troopers raised a steel ram. One strike, and the door splintered. Flashlights swept through. Shouts echoed. Moments later, they emerged with Betty herself, pajamas, wild hair, face twisted with rage. "You," she screamed, glaring at us. "You ruined everything." Grandpa stood silent, arms folded. The sight of her in cuffs was answer enough. The neighborhood watched quietly. No cheers. Just the stunned silence of people realizing the tyrant was finally gone. What followed was swift and brutal, legally, that is. Betty faced a mountain of charges: fraud, embezzlement, impersonating officials, conspiracy, racketeering. Her so-called officers turned on her to save themselves, sealing her fate. Betty Brown went to prison. 2 months later, the state dissolved the HOA completely. No more dues. No more covenants. The chains were broken. The neighborhood changed overnight. Kids' bikes scattered on lawns. Neighbors painted their houses the colors they loved. Mr. Henderson finally built the white picket fence he'd always wanted. Theo's antennas stood tall, now a point of pride. And Brenda? She found her courage. From fearful treasurer to community hero. One Saturday, neighbors gathered on our lawn, pies, six-packs, handshakes, gratitude. No speeches, just quiet thanks. We'd stood up, and it helped them stand too. Grandpa raised his binoculars one last time, not scanning for threats, but admiring the oaks Betty once wanted gone. Strong, unshaken, alive. Good people, he whispered. They just needed a reminder. Always chess, never checkers. The sun set golden over Creekwood. For the first time in years, it felt like a real neighborhood. The battle was over. And we had won.